Hello. Greetings. I don't think there's anyone in the chat, but it's okay because this is just for the mentorship people. Let's get started. Here we go. Here I am. And let's get a screen going. Sidecar display. Okay. Photoshop's open. Okay. Okay, so let's minimize that for now. We're going to start with each one of you has submitted things for review. I'm going to start with Chris J. I think I need to share the screen like this. Let me just double check that looks good. Check. Yeah, okay. This is Chris J's work. Chris J's got references he pulled, they pulled. I wasn't sure about the pronouns, but references right here. And we got some cool stuff. I mentioned this last time. We got like some Justin Sweet, Vance Kovacs. We got some Warhammer. We got some Paul Bonner. So I kind of getting a vibe of what he wants. I got a little bit of Jeff Simpson. We went through. He did thumbnails. Started with these. We did 50 of them, trying to push the limit here. And then the new sketches, these are done in a new ratio to match the Magic the Gathering. Whoa. I don't know what happened. My music just started playing automatically from my pocket. Okay, so these thumbnails are meant to match the ratio of Magic the Gathering cards. So I think we need to give some notes on them. They're sketches now, kind of rough sketches. So I'm going to take this image and download it. And then we're going to jump over to, I believe, Citrus. Citrus has been working on this gorilla-inspired piece. There's a bunch of references here, what they want to do, what they like. So it's really cool. Graphic stuff, kind of this like pop art kind of look. It's a very different vibe from Chris's. So they've got all these thumbnails they did. Again, we're pushing the thumbnails. We're going for like 50. This is kind of going beyond, like really making you work for them. Then they got some sketches done. This one's interesting, but I feel like it doesn't have opportunities for the final drawing, final painting. So we went on. They applied notes from the drawovers and the suggestions to here. We went ahead to move on with number 3. So we're going to go ahead and I think this is number 3. We just need some references here. Let me download this. Download. And then finally, we got Wah. They're doing a Shibari kind of post, a Shibari illustration. So it's a little more risque, but these are the sketches they did. And I'm just going to give let's start here. We need more thumbnails. That's the main thing. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Was it 4x4, 16? We need 50. So let's push for 50. And I think you got some interesting compositions here, but we need more. That's my main feedback note for you. I'll relay that in Discord. Let's minimize this now. Okay. Let me just put this here. Okay, that's a quick one. So for the sketch phase ones, because everyone's at a different space with this mentorship. Let me just place embedded. Actually, yeah, place embedded. We'll start with the gorillas one. I feel like it's a little more straightforward. And okay, so citrus. We want to focus on a few things now. I know you mentioned you're having trouble with some of the poses, so this is where we need to kind of get into some studies. We need to study some things here. Each pose has a little bit going on with the anatomy, so I'll just kind of say that flat out. Each pose needs a little bit going on with the anatomy, and we want to reference some things. Now that you got the initial idea what you want, let's talk about the references. Let me just switch my brush real quick. There we go. So for Murdoch, we want someone like doing some kind of interesting skateboarding trick, an interesting kickflip thing. So let's just pull up your board. I'm just going to move this to the side in case anything weird pops up. I'm just going to put kickflip. That might not even be the right term. I don't even know what that skateboarding move is. Here we go. So I'm going to grab copy, paste, copy, paste, copy. I'm trying to find stuff that looks, I don't know what that move's called, but if you know what the move is called, we can do that. I'm just going to move on with this though. So I'm just finding references. Of people doing interesting skateboarding stuff. Here's a really interesting one. Let's see what. I'm just grabbing a couple more. Here we go. Okay, so this is what you need to do for all the poses. You already have your general pose drawn out. So what you need to do now is do some studies on anatomy. We'll start with the Murdoch. So with the Murdoch, what I would do is like turn off this, pull up interesting skateboarding poses. If you have an exact idea what the move is, do that. I don't know the skateboarding terms, so I'm not going to attempt to learn that right now for this feedback. But you pull up interesting skateboarding moves and you can start just sketching out the general structure of the body. Get the structure, spend. You can spend as long as you want on these studies. The more you draw, the better and the easier it's going to be for your piece. So you can like really get in here and like figure out the structure of the body. You know, get the hand. It's got the thigh comes out this way and the kind of comes forward. Foot points down. Leg. It's an interesting angle. Okay. So like lock in structure, lock in proportion. Obviously, even with my drawing I just did here, there's some things that are off. So like realistically, you would want the body to be a little more curved, because it's like he's pretty curved in this illustration, and in the photo. You know, I would say, like, what's a good amount to draw? I don't know, like 10. Do 10 of these. Maybe take 10 minutes doing 10 poses. Maybe not that long. You don't need to go long. But you need to work on it as long as it takes for you to better understand the structure of the body. So if that means you got to draw for 10 minutes per pose, draw for 10 minutes per pose. But maybe you just need like a general like gesture drawing, and you start realizing like, oh, the arm is this long, and look at how that position of the hand looks. It's kind of like interesting. He's got like a couple fingers pointing, and then look how twisted the torso is here, and the head is kind of like over here. Like, take all these mental notes as you go, and sketch these out. Sketch as many as you need to. But like I said, if you need to spend like 10 minutes per sketch really locking in the proportion and the angles, then spend 10 minutes per sketch. But make yourself do a few of these, like, I don't know, I'd say at least 10. Do 10 different skateboarding poses. You should include the board too. I didn't do that, but you should include the board because you're studying this for your illustration, which will include a board. So take a look at how the board looks, the angle of the board. Get the angle of the wheels. Angle of the wheels. I'm doing this really quick for the sake of this demo, but you probably want to spend a lot more time. Really lock in like some of this stuff here. So you start getting the idea, like you're starting to study a person in motion in the air, and you're taking those mental notes. So you do 10, let's say you do 10 of these, come back to your original drawing, and you'll be like, oh, you know what? You do 10 studies, go back to your original drawing, put away all the references. Just put them away. You don't need them anymore because you've done so many studies, you've ingrained the information into your brain. So then you come back to this and go, oh, you know what? Based on my studies, his torso would probably be kind of like curving towards us. And maybe the pelvis is kind of like here. And then this would be one thigh. And the foot would be kind of coming out here. And this thigh could be coming down. And maybe this arm, instead of this arm curving down the way you had it, maybe the arm needs to counterbalance the pose more. Based on your studies, you learned that. This arm needs to counterbalance, because that's what it looked like to me in all the references we pulled. And then you need to get a photo, not a photo, sorry. You lock in the way the foot looks. Again, you probably need to specifically look up the trick he's doing. I don't know what that trick's called. So you start refining the structure of the body. based on your studies, and then you draw from your mind the refined pose with all the study knowledge you've had. So that's why I'm saying do 10. Do like 10 of them. If you still feel like you're not quite sure how to draw the poses after 10, then do 20. Just keep doing studies until you feel comfortable. Then come back here, turn off all the photos, and start drawing from the pose you initially wanted. Okay? That's what I would say. I do like you have like a bend in the board. I think you should keep the bend. I think that's fun. But I'm doodling this really quickly, but you might need to draw a little slower because you want to try and lock in the proportions correctly. Looks like your pose, you've got him facing. You kind of got to figure out where his torso is turning. This is kind of what I'm seeing. Something like this, where you've got his torso's pointing out, and then this leg's pointing down. When you do the studies, pay attention, like I said, pay attention to the structure, pay attention to like perspective, and you'll start noticing things like the way I'm drawing this guy. If I do the contour lines, I'm trying to drawing his torso pointing up, and then this leg is kind of pointing up, and the head is kind of like angled up, not up, but like we're viewing it from below. You have him drawn more straight on. Oops. You have them drawn more straight on. So you can, if you want to maintain that head position, start with the head and be like, okay, the head's going to be here specifically. And it's going to be like almost a profile. And then you can start kind of like building out exactly where the body is. Sometimes if you want a specific body part in a specific position, you should start with that body part. I typically like to start with the torso. I have a tendency to want to start with the head. I think most people do, but starting with the torso is a little better for planning out what you're drawing. What's going on here? Okay. You start seeing, so this is kind of what you drew. You have the body kind of like, the chest is kind of pointing down, and then his stomach kind of curves up, and then the leg goes up. That's kind of what you've done. You can do that too. You might, so what I'm trying to say is you might change the position based on your references. You might slightly angle the body differently, or you can choose to really lock in on the positioning you like. You just need to add more structure to it. So you can say, I really want to keep this position. Okay, add more structure, fix the anatomy, make him look a little bit more put together. So if you're like confused about like, well, how do I really lock in the anatomy? You could do some anatomy studies on top of the skateboarding studies. You might even want to like, let me do so you might even want to do this. You might even want to find like, let me try and find a guy doing the same move that can't find the exact same move. But let's say you need to do some anatomy studies and you want to combine it with the skateboarding. You could just type in like shirtless skateboarder, and you can like find a image like this, like a guy with no shirt on, and you're like, oh, okay, like now that I see how his arm muscles look, I can kind of plan out like that he's got this kind of, this is kind of like what the arm muscle's doing. You know, you start like looking at the anatomy in the skateboarding position, so you can start seeing like where's a muscle really tense, where's the muscle really relaxed, where's the muscle like, you know, overlapping. Your final piece is gonna be stylized. So you're taking all these mental notes, and you're gonna end up stylizing him. So remember that you're not gonna completely draw this guy like photorealistically. So I would say keep that in mind. So do some studies. Let's just list it out. I'll list it out for you in the chat. Do 10 skateboarder studies. Do let's say do 10 anatomy studies. Find poses similar to the skateboarding poses. And then take as much time as you need. You know, however much time. Take as much time as you need to understand the structure and proportions. Okay, I just sent you that message. So you're going to want to do everything I just said. You're going to want to do that for every single character. So like this guy over here, you want to do some anatomy studies of a guy doing pull-ups. It'll be pretty easy. Just go to like Google or YouTube and just type in like guy doing pull-ups or guy doing muscle-ups. If I type in guy doing muscle-up, guy doing muscle-up, I'm trying to find one at the angle that's similar so you can kind of get a general idea of the angle. It's hard to find the exact angle. Everyone wants to take the muscle-up picture from a different angle. Let's just do this one. This is like kind of close. This is a good place to study from. So like you could type in guy doing muscle-up and you find like this picture and he's like, oh look, this is a guy suspending his weight from his arms. So let's just sketch that out and, you know, do like I said, find similar poses and do 10 of them. 10 is a good starting number. If you need to do more, do more. Just pay attention to how the muscles work. And then once you stylize it, you know, you're probably going to end up doing it really simply. Like, you don't want the character to be like completely ripped, unless you're trying to make some weird version where the characters are like completely ripped. If you're going to stylize it, they're probably going to be skinnier looking and like not so anatomically correct. And we could work that out in the next parts of the drawing. Probably going to simplify these forms a lot. Something more like that. You know, you might do that, right? So you're going to start getting these fixes done. So every character needs some studies done for the anatomy. And like I said, you do the studies with photos. Then you go back to the original pose with no photo. The goal is to ingrain the knowledge into your brain and then apply that knowledge without the photo. Okay. For this guy, you'll need to work out the teeth first. In order to have him standing on the teeth, you'll need to really like think about. That's the other thing. You'll need to do some drawings of teeth. So, draw mouth, draw teeth, draw teeth. Practice drawing teeth, real teeth, and then you'll stylize them later for this final illustration. But the tooth is probably going to look something like. It's probably going to look something like this, where it's like got a little bit of 3-dimension to it. This is just me kind of guessing what a molar looks like, and you probably only need this much information for your final illustration. You just need enough to kind of sell the idea that it's a molar. And then his feet need to be like, his feet would need to conform to the teeth, right? So if like there's one tooth and it's angled up, his feet would need to be like, angled up in a certain way. So this leg would be straight and this leg would be out, like that kind of thing. Obviously not like a terrible stick figure. Draw the feet first. You should start doing like maybe his hands are in his pockets still. His jacket's open. Something like that. Again, not a terrible stick figure. But you're going to need to do studies of teeth so you can like draw the teeth in 3D. And like I said, they're probably going to end up just looking something like that. So you don't need to completely master the art of drawing teeth. You just need to generally get an idea what the teeth look like so you can draw them at a different angle without needing to look at a picture the whole time. But if you need to use a reference in the end, like if this is like a professional job and you need to get this done like in 3 days, I would argue just pull up the reference and use the reference and just kind of study as you go. Because you're not always going to have time to do like 10 studies and then come back and apply your studies every single time. That won't always be the case. For the sake of the mentorship, you should do the studies. So do the studies. And then if you're doing this for like a real job, maybe just do the referencing. But you just need to learn to reference. Like it does take a little bit of effort to learn to reference something and stylize it without directly copying the reference. Sometimes people can't do that. It takes time. Anyway, so that's the thing. You need to do studies for each of the figures. You need to do studies for the mouth. And then you need to apply the studies to the drawing. Okay? And yeah, I think it's kind of interesting illustration. Let me change the background real quick because I feel like it's a really straightforward graphical kind of illustration. The thing about the teeth you need to consider, this is something to consider when you're doing this stuff. The thing about the teeth you need to consider is that the teeth are going to be like a plane that, like a top-down version of a mouth is like this, right? The teeth curve. So this mouth would theoretically need to have teeth that curve backwards into the mouth. So the teeth flow backwards away from us. So realistically, this character here will need to be closer to us. So she would be larger. He would be closer. He would be larger. And then this character, I think his name is 2D, and this character, they would be further back. So we think of the placement within the location of the whole mouth. Yes, how you would really plan it out. So like, she'd be larger, he'd be larger, they'd be slightly smaller because they're going into the mouth. Okay, that's something else to consider. When you do the mouth studies, you'll learn like, oh, you're right, I should curve the mouth more. And you can stylize it. You don't need to curve it like a real mouth is probably curved like that, like a real mouth. But I think for this purpose of this illustration, you could probably curve it a little more like stylized, just for the sake of the illustration. But anyway, that's everything for this. So hopefully that all makes sense. Hold on real quick. Okay, sorry, I just thought the video wasn't recording for a second. Okay, so that's that. Let's move on to Chris J. Let's just take all this stuff. We're just gonna hide it all. And I'm going to put in Chris J's work. There's not really anything for me to send you. I'm going to send you the video, but there's nothing for me to like show you in terms of like a final draw over. There's nothing for me to draw over yet. You need to do the studies, so that's kind of where I'll end it. But for Chris, he's sketched several ideas out. We're trying to pick which the best idea is. I think we'll need to work on the composition a little bit, Chris, for some of these. Right off the bat, for me, some of the most interesting ones are 26, 32. They feel like they've got like some breathing room and interesting stuff going on. I really like 32's fisheye kind of a thing going on. That's really fun. That'll take some studying to get that right. I really like number 26 because I feel like number 26, you can have him running on the pig like this, and then you can have these arrows coming towards him, like he's fighting against something that's shooting arrows at him. And they basically function as this like compositional tool to point the eye towards the guy. So it's like a really cool action-packed image of like him with this gun and then like there's arrows shooting towards him, and I think it's a really fun image that way. So 26 is good, 32 is really good. 46 doesn't really read too well. That one's not so interesting. Like, I don't know what's going on. 21's okay. 21's interesting. Like, you got him with like the arrow. We need to work on the pose quite a bit, but it's a pretty interesting. You got a pretty interesting like compositional shape going on. So that's cool. So I think between those 21, 26, 32, my pick will be between these two. One of those two, 26 or 32. But if you really want to do 21, you can do 21. But I think 26 and 32 are much stronger, and I think they're a lot more. They're in a better place to work from than 21. I think 26 is really dynamic and interesting. It's a straightforward like. It's a centered composition where like that could be really boring. But if we consider like he's like it's action shot and there's like arrows shooting towards him and stuff, we can make it really interesting. And then 32 is just really fun. It's just a really fun like fisheye angle. The only thing about 32 I'm wondering about, I like the fisheye angle of 32. But I'm wondering if maybe it would be more interesting to have the camera, if we do the fisheye thing, what if the camera was like coming from like towards his face, so that we see his face here, and then like he's got his axe here in his hand, and then he's like riding the pig, and the pig's head's like right here coming towards us, and like so like the pig's head's like here coming towards us, and he's got his helmet, and like his head's right here, and this arm's like foreshortening quite a bit, and the axe is here somewhere. So the pig is like that. So what if it was like that? It's the same fisheye idea, but we're just seeing it from like a top down, because then you're going to get like a really good shot of his face. This is a terrible color to use. Let me do yellow. You'll get an interesting shot of his face. Like we'll be looking at his face like here, and then we got the pig's face down here, and we can just really draw it out into an interesting fisheye. That could be good. That might be a way to do it. So maybe if you're going to do 32, maybe we change the angle of the camera, which is essentially a different drawing entirely. But I think it might be a more interesting one, because you got to consider this. If you're looking from below, you've got the camera so low that we're kind of looking from like a bug's eye view. And you gotta wonder, like, what is the purpose of us looking from so low? Why is that the angle? We're trying to make him look really big. Like in this case, we're trying to make him look massive, like gigantic, because we're like a bug's eye view. We're so low to the ground, and we're getting his foot. It's really big. His foot's really big. The pig's head's really big, and then he is actually kind of small. So you start wondering, like, so what's the point of being so low to the ground? Do we want to show the pig more, or do we want to show the foot more? Because the foot's kind of really close to the camera. Is the foot important somehow? The face is almost least important because it's so far back. So what do we do there? If this was like a movie, this shot might be interesting to show the power of the characters, like to show how powerful he is. But if you're trying to show who the character is, I think we might want to like angle it from above more. And you got like, you do the same fisheye look, and the pig can be screaming. The pig can be screaming and like running, and like the head can be bigger. We could really sell that, and then like the axe is back here. That could be more interesting, I feel like, because then it's about like him charging into the camera or something. He'll still feel powerful, but you'll get a better view of who he is. Those are my thoughts on it. So you got 32, 26, 21. I say pick one of those. 10's also pretty good. I think we need to work on some of the compositional elements of 10. I feel like it's kind of weird that the head of the snake is so far down here, and we don't really get to see it. And then he is right in the middle. Like maybe if he was like more over here, and the snake was like maybe we could see a better angle of the snake. Maybe that'd be better. Like the head angle is kind of hard. It's kind of hard to see what the snake's doing at that angle, because you got like a bird's eye view of the head of the snake. I think if he were not so center focused, like if this loop-de-loop was happening just slightly off kilter, and then maybe the snake head was at an angle where you could see the teeth more, so I feel like we could see the danger. You want to see the danger of the snake, like what's what's so scary about the snake? It's like, well, he's got all his teeth. So you can see like the snake's teeth more. And then you see him right here. He's struggling with his axe. Maybe the axe would be a little bit lower because we don't want it to be cut off by the top of the canvas. We can maybe shrink him a little bit. Anyway, those are some different things to consider. We're trying not to put the entire focus in the center of the frame. Not perfectly center. A little bit off center is nice. And for this to be about him being trapped by a snake, we just don't get to see much of the snake and the danger of the snake. So I think just angling it differently would be a little better. So that's to consider that. So to sum it up, I think it's 32, 26, 21, or 10, but all of them will need a little work with the compositional adjustments. I think 21 will need a lot of studies for the anatomy. But that's where we're at. So I'm going to just type that up for you in Discord. 32, 26, 21, 10. So I think that will make sense to you. Okay, so those are the points of feedback. That's it. That's everything. To sum it up, we got some selections from Chris J for Citrus. For Wah, we just need more thumbnails before we decide. We're trying to shoot for 50, so make sure 50 is hit before we move forward. And that should be everything. So once again, thank y'all. Hope you're having a good day. Hope we